So when I say I go to town to buy those magazines, it was really a journey. I probably would do a 6-hour boat ride to and 6-hour back. Truly, Africa is the next frontier, and more people are becoming interested in the conversation. You don't have the camels and monkey and all that funny representation of Africa anymore. You now begin to see and hear people talk about Africa in terms of investment, companies, people, culture, money, leadership. A lot of the monies in the venture space now in Nigeria are from outside. They're from outside of Nigeria. I'm excited about trying to get old money in Nigeria to become new money in Nigeria.
Welcome to The Diligent Observer, where we help angel investors see what most miss. I'm your host, Andrew, and every week we explore what works, what doesn't, and why through conversations with experienced startup investors and operators. My guest today is Dr. Solomon King, Executive Director of the Lagos Angel Network and a 2-decade veteran in Nigerian business financing solutions. In this episode, Dr. King walks through how the network has grown from 12 to 120 members in the last couple of years, why he's so focused on mobilizing local capital to match the flood of outside money pouring into the continent, why he sees climate tech as the next big opportunity in Nigeria, and what founders across the continent consistently get wrong when approaching angel investors. I hope you enjoy learning from Dr. King as much as I did. Dr. King, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here today. Thanks.
So I have to start with my classic first question, and that is, what are you excited about right now?
I like what's going on globally with a lot more people being aware and focused on growth markets, emerging markets, and particularly the above average interest in Africa as an investment destination. There's a lot of conversations going on globally around how truly Africa is the next frontier, and more people are becoming interested in the conversation. And you know how a lot more people are now conscious of Africa, and more information about Africa is now out there. You don't have the camels and monkey and all that funny representation of Africa anymore. You're now beginning to see and hear people talk about Africa in terms of investment, companies, people, culture, money, leadership. So Africa is becoming forefront in different conversations, and that's really exciting because again it dovetails into the investment space, and I like it. I like it a lot.
So, Solomon, you have been an educator and an investor for years in this space. Tell me, when did you start to feel this transition? Like, when did this start to happen in your experience? Because you're excited about it now. When did you start getting excited about this feeling that something is changing in terms of the global perception?
I think that say somewhat about 2015, 2016, just a couple of years before the COVID-19 global lockdown and all, just a few years before that. And I think it got fever pitch at about just after the lockdown. People began to look at things a whole lot differently. And yeah, so I'd say just about a decade ago.
And how would you describe the change? Like, what exactly feels different, today versus a decade ago in terms of this global perception?
Okay, so first, a decade ago, I was 35. Oh well, not 35 yet, but I was 30s. Now I'm 43. So I think I see things a lot more differently now, from a more broader worldview than earlier years. That's on a personal ground. But then looking at it generally, the conversations around Africa and the growth thereof only got this heightened because more and more young people are forcing these conversations. Suddenly, the demography of Africa is now an issue. People are now talking about how big, Africa is as a market. When you consider that there is, um, consider what's going on in Asia, in China particularly, when you consider what's going on in India, you pretty much want to say, okay, Africa now has a demographic market outlook, you know, and considering that then makes it imperative for people to begin to look closely. Plus, mine is always looking for ways to make more money globally, and so when you think that, okay, Africa wasn't in the picture before, but you now see and know and hear that the median age of the average African is 18 years old. That means that you have younger people who are eligible to work, eligible to create value, eligible to create monies, for different kinds of investment for another 20, 30, or 40 decades to come. Because whoever is 18 years old now is just coming into the workforce and he's got energy and brilliance and innovation for another 40 years at the very least. It's a market to look at pretty much. So yeah, it's what you would expect for any really rational thinking um, investor. Africa is good business right now.
That's fascinating to hear. And I'm curious, as you have been an educator, during this season and, transitioned recently into more of this investment activity, how all of this has impacted Nigeria specifically, and then maybe dovetail for me how you got into this angel investing world and how all this applies in our little startup world, which is pretty different from the rest of the finance stack.
I agree. I totally agree. Maybe because I've always been around the space, it doesn't feel new. I'd explain. So I come from a background where I was trained to be an accountant. I take a few degrees in accounting. And whilst taking those degrees, I got very interested in more non accounting courses than the core accounting courses. Courses around business strategy, growth, markets, branding. Those got my attention more than the crunching of the numbers. And so, even though I was a good student crunching numbers, I was more fascinated and more passionate about the makings and the workings of good businesses locally and globally. So, as a second year student in the university, I would study about economies of the world and economies of African states. I could tell about the inflation crisis in Zimbabwe. I could tell a lot of things around the African um, economies. And I use that a lot in all of my examples in school. And my teachers would be like, yo, where did you get this from? Can I get the source material? And I'd have to go bring out the magazine, whether it's the African Business Report or it was Forbes. And this back in the day, very expensive magazines to own, but I would save of my feeding money, my allowances, and go into town to get those magazines. I get stacks of them, and then after I'm done studying school books, I begin to read those magazines voraciously. Now, those studies and deliberate readings help prepare my mind for a work in consulting and um, just the global outlook of doing business, even though I was stuck in faraway deeper sides of Africa. So lots of people know Lagos as the very popular city. There's other parts of Nigeria that are not as popular. Some of them are really remote, and my university was in one of such places. So when I say I go to town to buy those magazines, it was really a journey. I probably would do a 6 hour boat ride to and 6 hour back. I do that once every week just because I wanted to get materials. Once every month, yeah, because I wanted to get material enough to be able to study. So I started my own consulting practice for small businesses by my third year in the university. Now, how that even happened was more interesting. One of our lecturers back in the day was a Nigerian who lived in the US, I think he also worked in consulting in the US, and then he'll come back to Nigeria every other month to teach his classes, you know, and he inspired me so much. I said I wanted to live this kind of life. I wanted to be, I wanted to have my family and my work somewhere else. I wanted to be a visiting lecturer somewhere else, and do that across countries. And because he was a practitioner, it was easy for him to really help us see that we're not just studying stuff. This is happening. This is life. And he will give you examples upon examples of businesses that he had either had interest in as an investor, or the ones that he was consulting for as a consultant. And so his business strategy classes were really interesting classes for me. And because, of course, I had begun to study about businesses globally, it was easy for me to connect with the gentleman. And I had an A in that course, I remember, first semester and the second semester. But that launched me into my own consulting practice. So by my third year, I'd created a brochure, registered a small consulting business, and began to provide um, brand and strategy services for small businesses back then. So you see, that introduction already got me into the small business play, and I began to already engage business owners. I was 21, yeah, maybe 21, 22. So I was pretty young. You could tell that I was Rudy. You could tell that I wasn't your um, very experienced consultant. I was very knowledgeable. That's something that you couldn't take away from me. You could take that I was fresh, but I knew what I was talking about deeply.
Well, and it sounds like you had some hustle too. I mean, nobody takes a 6 hour boat ride to pick up some magazines,
Yeah,
and doesn't walk away with a sense of hustle. That's incredible.
yeah. So I always had it going. I always had that. You've got to put in the work. So that got me already into the whole startup space. Graduated from the university. Then I took a job in banking. So in banking, I was thrust into the retail end of banking. And so I worked as a credit officer, providing loans and services and advisory services really for small business owners yet again. And so I'd come to understand the psychology of the average small business owner and even the dynamics of their finances, with the margins, the profitability. And that's why I could tell. Then the more I studied around this and grew in my understanding of how finance works, I realized that small businesses, small, medium, and small, medium, and maybe large businesses are one side of the spectrum, and then there's the other side of the spectrum where you have the hyper growth startups that the VC guys are usually interested in. Took a study down that road, and then the the understanding and the knowledge and the learnings around angel investing then came to bear. I worked in banking for a bit, say about 5 years. Then I left. I came back to my private consulting practice, but this time I was providing consulting services for the banks because, of course, I just left the banks and I could see gaps, and I began to provide consulting services, interventions around and innovation, strategy and innovation. And, that got me into now the innovations play and understanding how businesses, both big and small, innovate. So I had sessions on creativity, I had sessions on innovation, and I did that for quite a number of Nigerian banks, both at regional levels and at national levels. And so once I kept that consulting up, my appetite as an angel investor and my knowledge of the field also grew over the years. I remember talking with big banks to say, hey, how's Facebook going to affect banking in Nigeria? What's the connection between?
Hmm.
Yeah. So how back then, this were very early days.
Right. This is, I mean, as you're talking, this is just such a perfect sort of background story for being an active angel in Nigeria, which is so well known as sort of a fintech hub. And, Lagos just has so many well-known fintechs. Like the background you have leading up to this story is just, I'm excited. Keep going. Tell me more.
Great. So I began to ask questions around: is there going to be a day where a person does not need to come into the banking hall to open an account before they open an account? Is there something that's going to disrupt traditional banking? I began to ask them those questions several years ago. So when the fintech play came, it was just clear that, hey, Solomon been talking about this a while ago. Again, because I was talking about it as an independent consultant, not one of the big five, it didn't hit much. I got my audience, but not enough people were listening to me. And it didn't matter to me. I just knew that I saw it coming, because immediately you begin to consult and provide direction and guidance and advisory around innovation and creativity. You usually would be able to fit things together, So if you ask me, for example, like what the question you asked me, oh, Solomon, what are you excited about? On a personal ground, I'm excited about trying to get old money Nigeria to become new money Nigeria. What I mean by that is Nigeria had always had industrialists, where factories, we had lots of companies that were into trading, there was textile manufacturing, there was food and beverages manufacturing. So there was a set of guys who ran the market back in the day. They are not playing in the venture space now because a lot of the monies in the venture space now in Nigeria are from outside. They're from outside of Nigeria. And so I'm a bit, well, I won't say so much, but a bit interested in trying to get more Africans, especially Africans who are of means, to look at businesses, especially in the venture world now. So the hyper growth, the quick to scale kind of businesses are the ones that interested in. And so this is the way my mind works, pretty much. And so back in the day, I was already saying, this is what's going to happen. More and more people are going to get interested in growing businesses in Africa. Of course, fintech then came, building on the infrastructure that banking already laid. So banking and technology mixed together was easy to get fintech and every other thing now. So I'm thinking strongly about getting other industries to catch up. As the rails and the infrastructure is being built, is being discussed, I think that climate tech, for example, is the next big frontier, for example, in the African space, because fintech investors are kind of jaded. Not like investments are not going in there, but you see, um, right now in Nigeria, I could make a bank transfer of funds, and the person that I'm sending the money to expects to receive it in 3 minutes or less. It didn't always used to be like that. And not like that globally. It's just something that we have innovated on so much. Now, there is a lot of conversation. Back in the day, this is the same way conversation around banking was. There's now a lot of conversation around democratizing energy, democratizing power. As we speak right now, I wouldn't have a situation where I'm out of power in my house. It wouldn't happen because that's sorted, and it's happening for a lot of African homes. So the more conversations are going in these spaces, the more it is likely that investment go in these spaces, and growth then suddenly explodes in your face. So it's the way you ask, oh, have the fintech become what it is? People started talking about it. People started drawing the connections. People started
Mm,
seeing what was available. And so it's the same thing that I think will happen with um, clean tech, particularly. Then maybe health tech will jump in the way. But these are my ruminations really around
mm.
going on in Africa.
I love it. So walk me through how you specifically got connected to the Lagos Angel Network, maybe a bit of the story there, and what's happening in the group right now. Are these sort of categories, these themes, things that you all are focusing on? Walk me through how you got plugged in and into the seat that you're in today.
Great. First, I must say that I'm grateful for the opportunity to lead the network because it's something I always wanted to do. And so lots of people can tell that, hey, you're enjoying what you're doing. And I'm like, yeah, because it's something I always wanted to do. It's um, it's one of my life's work, to be able to get more people to be interested in angel investing. And so as I learned about angel investing and investing generally, and as I studied the business space in Africa, I realized that um, there was a capital mismatch in the sense that people who had capital were not finding the deals, and the deals were not finding the capital, and it was a question also of the lack of knowledge. The angels didn't even know so much about angel investing, talk more of being angel. Then the startups and small businesses who could have gotten angel investing um, didn't know where the angel investors were, didn't even know that was a thing, didn't think that it was possible, didn't understand that investor class. So most businesses and business owners and founders and entrepreneurs always think the banks are not lending money to us, so business is not worth doing. So or they get really ridiculous interest rates from the banks, and some people go on, some people struggle, some people lose these businesses because of the inability to pay, pretty much. So um, I then began to focus on providing this knowledge. I had studied the work of the Lagos Angel Network extensively. I studied angel investing generally, but that of the Lagos Angel Investing Network extensively. Um, then, as fortune will have it, there was an advertisement. Yeah, there was a role open for the in the network, and I'm like, yeah, why not go for it? And so I literally, I left the job as a lecturer to take up the Lagos Angel Network role. So upon when I left banking, I went back into consulting. I did my consulting practice and lectured in the university. you know. Um, so as I did that, my consulting practice metamorphosed into me organizing investors in what is described as a credit union. So we had created a credit union to provide credit really for businesses. And so I'd done that until the Lagos Angel Network opportunity came. There was an advert open, there was a role open for community coordinator, and then I took it. And because again, I did not want to spread myself too thin, and I also didn't want unnecessary dramas. I, um, after 13 years of being a lecturer, I resigned. Well, no, I had a voluntary retirement, so I'm a retiree right now. I'm a I'm a young retiree. So yeah, so I had a voluntary retirement, and then I joined the Lagos Angel Network fully. And what we've done with the network is to bring a lot of people into the angel investing bracket. So we're consistently talking to people about um, the practice, the art and the science of angel investing, making people understand that startup and angel investing could be a part of your portfolio, and some of your disposable income, some of your investing funds could go there. That angel investing could be part of your investing strategy. So we've grown the network from 12 members to 120 today. Yeah, we're 120 members today, and yeah, in the space of 2 years.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And what have you found the most interest in or most appetite in terms of deal activity and like, as you've been sort of evangelizing this concept of, hey, you can deploy your capital to support these high growth startups. This is different from traditional small business. Think about the impact that these could have. Obviously, that message is resonating, thus the growth that you're seeing. What have you seen in terms of the group's focus on the deal activity? Has that matched these categories around climate tech and health tech that you talk about, or where have you seen the most interest from these members in the recent year or two?
So what I'd noticed is the fact that more people just want to learn. More people just want to see what's going on. More people are here out of curiosity, more than anything. But that said, as a network, we are sector agnostic. So what that now says is, if the deal is good, we do it. If the deal isn't good enough, we probably will pass on it. And we've had a few good deals that we think would, given the growth that we see, will turn out really well in a bit. So before I joined the network, and then now do have the opportunity to lead the group has been here for about a decade or more. 2015 originally registered and got certification in 2015 as a network, as a non-profit. Okay. But activities around angel investing started about 2010, 2011, and so in that period, LAN has done over 30 deals uh, that can be pointed to, that can be accounted for. There's several other deals that individual members have done that, you know, may not have been recorded as part of the group investment, but investments where you have,
So it's how angel groups go, man. There's just so many side deals, and you're trying to keep track of it, but that is the essence of what it is.
and in that period, we've had some really good companies, and if you have some that are falling by the wayside. Under my leadership, we've had had 7 investments, and we're adding deals every other month, one or two every other month. So yeah, the network is growing both in terms of numbers and the number of deals done. Um, if the deal is good, it doesn't matter the industry. We're more about impact. How many jobs would this create? How many families would this feed? How many lives will be better as a result of this business coming to life?
Solomon, I love the focus on educating and activating new capital, because we've had so many guests on this show. I just see this theme over and over again, that how much of the population doesn't realize that they could be investing in these high growth startups, how to do that well, and then ultimately building the confidence to write the check.
Indeed.
Like so many of the great angel group leaders that I've had on this show talk about the impact of their educational programming, the structures that they put in place to help new members understand how to do this well and to do this in community. Like all of those things are just so important. What have you found to be some of the most helpful educational activities for new angels joining your community in recent years? Like what seems to click the most with your members?
So we do have what we describe as the Angel Fellowship. It's a cohort-based educational program that helps us induct new members. Now, it's a program that then teaches the angels the basics of angel investing, from deal sourcing to negotiations to structuring to being an effective member of the Lagos Angel Network, to understanding the different kinds of instruments that there are in there, to assessing how to assess founders, how to assess deals, and developing your angel thesis as an investor. So the program is pretty much a 6 weeks comprehensive lesson on the whole angel investing spectrum, and we found that to be very enlightening for our members. As a network, we also have borrowed a leaf from the work that is being done by the New York Angel Network.
Hmm.
Yeah, when I took over reins of office, I went down to Seraph, the Seraph document that they have, everything that was ever written there that is made available in public, every article ever written on the Seraph on the Seraph website. I studied, and then put an African face to it, and tried to um, match the African reality with what those documents were saying. And then we've now begun to create our own version of those guidebooks. So we do have a guidebook on a number of areas around angel investing,
Hmm.
describing our process. So we put out a guidebook bi-monthly, once every 2 months. We have a guidebook dealing with different aspects. So the more recent one is building your angel brand. And yeah, there's the one that is being worked on as we speak is on exit engineering, where
Hmm.
as an angel group and as angel investors, you want to ensure that we're creating exits, not just talking about it, but ensuring that from the start of the deal, we're considering the exit from the end. And so these guidebooks have helped. One other.
So in those, just before you move on, in those guidebooks, I'm curious what did you change? Like what is the most different? You know, obviously the New York Angels and Seraph, and what are some of the core differences and things that you've had to adapt?
The materials from Seraph were not used to create this. They were the inspiration. So you study
Mm,
them, you see what the thinking is like from a more established angel group, and say, okay, in our group, what challenges do we have? In our group,
mm,
what do people need to understand in angel investing in Nigeria, across Africa? I'm in a meeting with the guys in Sudan. There's an angel group there forming up, and I'm facilitating a few of the induction process. And so we're helping more and more Africans to understand the nuances of angel investing in Africa, because sure, a lot of the things there are different. We have cultural differences. We are more communal than some other societies, and this brings to bear how we deal with money and businesses in Africa. It also helps us understand that the average African, for example, needs to now be taught that uh, seed capital, or capital that comes from the angel capital, is not free money, because if it is family, friends, and fans, I don't like the word fools, If it is family, friends, and fans, then there is a silent lack of accountability there. And so we usually
Mm,
like to now have to say, hey, for us as a network, we're almost institutional. So there's got to be the need for accountability. So the conversations vary based on the nuances of the market.
that's fascinating. I would love to hear the full list sometime. Solomon, any other thoughts or insights you'd leave our audience with as we wrap?
I hear that I did me a book that somebody who's out there in the UK, he made a comment recently on LinkedIn saying this is the book that he wished that he read when he was fundraising last year. It's called Ideas, Checks, and Capital. And in Ideas, Checks, and Capital, I try to help people understand, especially founders, understand how capital works. So whilst I spoke earlier, I explained that there was a disconnect between the knowledge that was available to founders about angel capital and the core capital stack. And then angels also needed to learn a lot about angel investing as a strategy. So on the one hand, because there were more founders seeking capital than angels seeking deals, it was good to quickly do something on that. So yeah, I did ideas checks on capital, and the market has been kind. It's been well received, and I've gotten feedback from very important quarters in the whole ecosystem about how um, pivotal that book has been. I speak about the psychology of um, the investors who the founders will be approaching. I describe what most African founders don't get right in terms of how they're wired and what they think wrongly.
Hmm.
So, for example, there is the expectation that hey, I started me a business, so I should get funding. That sense of expectation, false sense of expectation, is there, and so I help people to dissuade their minds from that to say, hey, if you must get capital, you must earn it. It's not something that you are entitled to. So there's the part where I say, hey, nobody owes you nothing, not even capital. I explain that capital is not scarce. There's a lot of capital out there looking for good businesses to um, to fund, and I describe capital not only in the sense of businesses. I run a non-profit. The Lagos Angel Network is a non-profit, so I help non-profit leaders also see how they can attract necessary support, partnerships, and funding. Recently, the Lagos Angel Network was admitted into the investor network of Microsoft. Now, that happened because we put ourselves in a certain position that makes people see us the way I want to be seen. And so, in the material, I also describe what nonprofits can do, to position themselves properly for the right capital or funding or support like it would be. So it's a book really on ideas. It's a book really on capital and how you can get checks. I spend a good part of the book talking about the different kinds of capital that is available. I touch on revenue-based financing and how that works
Mm,
in um, in Nigeria and in Africa by extension. The idea for me was that anyone who was not in Lagos and was not in the big cities, people who were in the secondary cities can also have access to the knowledge, because it seemed to me like knowledge, events, and opportunities were concentrated in certain cities, and certain other cities were feeling left out. So there's a
mm,
place called Kano in northern Nigeria. That's where the first person who ever bought the book bought it from, and I liked it. And we've had people out of Ethiopia, get access to the material. So yeah, this is what I was thinking about when I wrote the book. I wanted to democratize that knowledge as best as possible. So yeah, ideas checks and capital is one thing that I think that I'm excited about also, and hoping that more and more people get access to it.
Fantastic. Well, we will definitely include a link in the show notes. Sounds like a masterclass in how capital works in your ecosystem, which would be a huge blessing to many, I'm sure.
Indeed.
Dr. King, thank you so much for joining me today, for sharing insights on the Lagos and broader ecosystem. It's been such a blessing, and I look forward very much to our next conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm hoping that I provided necessary perspective. This has been enjoyable. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it this much, but hey, thank you.
Glad to hear it. Thanks, Dr. King.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Diligent Observer. I'm your host, Andrew, and if you're an angel investor looking for essential angel intel in 5 minutes every week, I think you'd enjoy my newsletter. I send my best stuff, interesting deals, and more straight to your inbox so you never miss a thing. Subscribe today at thediligentobserver.com.